there used to be a belief that we bartered the whole of the race at one point, and that has been discarded largely. There may have been pockets of bartering, but in general, there were sharing in communities. Then we developed currency of a type, which included things like shells and polished bits of rock. And then we found gold.
And gigantic stones.
And gigantic stones. And then we found gold and silver and precious metals, and we developed money in a form we might recognize it today. And that lasted a long time, and then we started making paper notes that represented bits of real money, and those paper notes were passed around. Bearer notes, people, you had a goldsmith in Vienna, and the goldsmith in Vienna was holding X pounds of gold for you, and you gave a note, and now this guy had the note, which was worth 5 pounds of gold, and probably he wasn't going to go to Vienna and cash the note in and take his 5 pounds of gold, so he passed the note to, this person to buy something, and then he owned 5 pounds of gold, and gradually the idea of money changed from objects to paper, and that paper for a very long time represented precious metals. And then the point came when, certainly in the United States, it didn't anymore. The currency was floated, and the silver notes and the last vestiges of bearer notes went away. And so now we have money. And it is generally paper. Sometimes it's heavily adulterated metal. But we buy things with it, and we no longer think about the precious metals that it once represented, which is good because we have far more paper money than there are precious metals to back it. So the buying power of the paper money is in comparison to other economies and other things elsewhere. Well, one might have thought the evolution of money had ended. It hasn't. It's continuing on, and it's continuing on in a number of different ways that are not even physical at all. The simplest method, which everyone will think about, the first step, if you would, is using an ATM card. You don't have to take money out of the bank, you just use your ATM card, or now you tap your ATM card, or you wave it at something. There are all sorts of methods of using them, and you transfer money from your account to the account of the person that you're purchasing something from, or they transfer money from their account to your account if you're either selling them something or getting a refund.
There are apps that'll do it too.
Wait, it continues. We started developing online wallets and methods of preserving money online, which could then be used. So just dealing with known currency right now, you could work, have your paycheck deposited to a bank, use your ATM card to take money from the bank and put into a virtual wallet, and then use that wallet to purchase things online. You never see the money. It is all electronic pulses from the time it leaves the bank that your employer is using to pay you until it is ultimately used by the person from which you purchased something with your online wallet. So that's the simplest form of virtual currency. It still reflects things that we recognize as currency. However, in recent years, new currencies, new economic measures have appeared that don't have the backing of any government. The one you may have heard of is Bitcoin. Bitcoin may possibly have been created by an entrepreneur in Japan, or it may not have. It may possibly have been created by an entrepreneur in Germany, or it may not have. It may possibly, for all we know, be a social experiment by some government to find out if this will work. All we know for sure is that someone who preferred to remain anonymous, and several people have since claimed to have been, created Bitcoins, which are completely virtual currency. They gain value only if it's assigned. There is a market in Bitcoins, although it's suffered a downturn recently. It looks like it may be coming back up now. It is a currency that does not really exist, but can be used with certain people who accept it as a method of exchange to pay debts, to purchase things. And finally, there is a branch of this virtual economy in virtual worlds, which most of you have probably heard of, that bleeds over into the real world. And I'll give you two examples. There is a number of role-playing games online, several of which have virtual commodities and virtual currencies that are sold openly in the real world. One science fiction game actually sold the moon, the virtual moon, if you would, for, as I recall the article, $35 million to real people who then developed the moon. It's what's called a real currency game. They then developed things on the moon which other characters in the game could go and use in the game, paying for with bits of their virtual currency, which then were transferred to the owners of the moon and could be converted back into money. That's one example. So that's a mix of real and non-real currency that actually, that particular game, there was a list recently of the top 50 sales of virtual items leading to real money. And there were quite a number of people that make a good living off this. The second type of virtual economy you have, similar to Bitcoins and more real world based, are methods whereby given financial entities agree to exchange real world goods for Bitcoin-like non-existent currencies. In other words, they set up a currency exactly the same as people did in the 17 and 1600s. Okay, well, for our purposes, we're going to use XYZ. And people can then accumulate wealth that has some form of real-world power using a completely virtual system that involves no real-life moving parts. That's the simple explanation.